Hello and welcome to In Defense of a Movie Podcast. I'm Dan McIntyre. Joining me as always is Aaron Massey. How you doing, Aaron?
All right.
An appropriate way to start, my good man, because we are talking about 2002's Reign of Fire.
Hells yeah.
This hour and 41-minute PG-rated blockbuster directed by Rob Bowman.
Masterpiece.
Sitting on Rotten Tomatoes at 42% and a popcorn meter of 49%. This came out in the summer of 2002.
Right on the tip.
Yeah, it squared off against Men in Black 2 and Road to Perdition in July, and it came up real short, Aaron. This was a box office bomb.
Which is very surprising to me because little 13-year-old Aaron was like, hell yeah, dragons, fighting, love it.
This is a testosterone-fueled, macho, post-apocalyptic throwdown.
Yeah. I think this movie may have made a 13-year-old Aaron question his sexuality.
This is the kind of movie...
boy boner.
No. This is the kind of movie that made you want to go outside and look for sticks that were shaped like guns. This had a budget of $60 million US and a box office take of only $82 million. Pretty paltry for what it is, and surprisingly so. So, Aaron, I think the best place to start, because it's such a monster of a cast, why don't you start by telling us who the cast is, and then we'll get into what Reign of Fire is about.
Okay, well, we got Christian Bale as Quinn, Matthew McConaughey as Van Zandt, Isabel Scorupco as Alex Jensen. The three main actors, or well, I guess you do need to know who Gerard Butler is playing Creedy, because he's kind of like a middle actor, but...
Yeah, at this point, he hadn't done 300 yet, so he was still kind of like a B-lister at this point.
You know what? With that being said, Dan, I think maybe that might be the first thing I want to get into in this movie. It's just the amount of famous people that are in this movie.
Yeah.
While it's not like anything super crazy, there is a lot of actors in this movie who went on to be in like bigger roles, right? So I just thought that was really cool. Obviously, Gerard Butler went on, like you said, 300 movies, has made a huge career for him. We have Alexander Siddig, and he played Julian. He was the doctor on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah. And
we have Jack Gleason as Joffrey. So it was just like a child Joffrey. So yeah. So it was pretty cool seeing him in his, I would assume, one of his like first acting roles ever. So yeah, anyways, just wanted to get that out of the way. The amount of famous people that were in this movie that went on to star in like major roles.
Yeah, Isabella Scorupco was a Bond girl from GoldenEye before this.
And she was, before this movie.
Yeah, huge cast. Well, with a title like Reign of Fire, I mean, that's one of the sweetest titles probably ever of any movie.
Totally.
So that being said, what is this movie about, Aaron?
So, dragons. It's about dragons.
Yeah.
A creature has been awakened that has lain dormant for millions of years. A species older than the dinosaurs and more terrifying than anything we could have imagined.
So this movie is about, it's like a post-apocalyptic dragon future.
Yeah.
Basically, what had happened was they were digging down into the earth in London somewhere, and they managed to go so deep that they awoken something. And what they awoke was dragons. Now, this movie is a little weird with what is the exact year that this takes place. There was a little bit of discrepancies between the trailer and what was actually said in the movie. So I believe in the movie, when they first awake the dragons, it's about the year is 2002, and then it flashes forward to 2020 with an older Christian Bale. So the premise of the movie is Christian Bale, he's a child. The opening scene is he's going to visit his mother. He goes down a mine shaft. He walks into the mine. He sees a dragon, and they realize that they awake it. And then after that, it's just all hell breaks loose on the earth. And these dragons come out from deep in the ground and just start wreaking havoc all over the earth. And Christian Bale's character, Quinn, he is leading, I don't want to call it a resistance, but more of a, I don't know, like a homestead.
Yeah.
Just where he's taking in as many survivors as he can. He's just trying to make ends meet. He's trying to survive this like dragon apocalypse that's happening. And he's like leading a crew of people. Seems like there's quite a few kids in his like little compound here.
Yeah.
And he's just basically trying to survive while dragons exist and they're just running havoc like all over the earth.
I saw the first, but soon the world saw millions. No one knew how they spawned so fast. They swarmed like locusts, burning everything in their path, driven by one purpose: to feed.
So the whole entire movie takes place in, I believe it's Ireland, Ireland is where it was filmed.
Yeah.
But like where they're lying dormant is in London. So it's kind of in Europe, in the UK, in that area, kind of. And so he's just leading a group of people, trying to keep them all alive. And one day he notices this like convoy of mercenaries show up. And that is Matthew McConaughey's character. And he comes in as like a, I don't know, what would you call him? Like a hotshot military guy, like a dragon slayer.
Yeah.
I guess dragon slayer would probably be the best way to call him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just comes in and he first interacts with Quinn, just being like, "Hey, can we rest here? Can we like resupply?" And meanwhile, while they're resting there and resupplying, a dragon comes and attacks them, and he murders this dragon, which I believe Quinn is like over the moon for. Sorry, am I missing anything, Dan?
There's definitely some urgency to the situation because there's that guy at the beginning who decides that he's going to leave Quinn's encampment. But on their way out, they pillage the tomato plant crop. Mm-hmm. But in doing so, they attract a dragon.
Eddie.
Yeah, and the dragon burns down all the crops, kills a bunch of people. And so in their selfishness, they screwed the food supply for the entire next year for Quinn and his kids. So there's a bit of an urgency to this. Quinn doesn't mention it to Van Zandt, but like he's low on options here.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Dan. That is a big point because they do lose all of their produce and crop for the year there. Mm-hmm. So he shows up at the compound there. Christian Bale, Quinn, reluctantly allows Matthew McConaughey, Van Zandt, into the compound. Obviously, they have a little bit of their differences, but a dragon does attack, and Quinn witnesses Van Zandt slay a dragon, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess the whole movie kind of kicks off from there.
You try anything, I'll kill you. I can get your name. Quinn.
So after they kill the first dragon, the people of the compound who live there are having a celebration because they saw a dragon slayed. Van Zandt comes in and he's like, "Hey, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, you shouldn't be celebrating. I lost 3 men this day." And man, we didn't even get into the, what are they called? The,
Archangels.
Archangels. I don't remember the Archangels. It's been a while since the last time I seen this movie.
Yeah.
But
same.
I thought they were so cool in this movie. I don't know. What did you think?
I thought they were kind of silly and kind of crazy. There's that scene where they do their big jump. And I don't know what elevation a helicopter flies to, but I can probably guarantee it's not high enough for them to have done everything they did before they hit the ground. It felt like the endless runway thing in Fast and the Furious, where they just fell and fell and fell. And it was just like, oh boy. So I thought it was pretty campy and silly, but I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, it's a sweet concept, but I thought the execution of it was a little bit like...
well,
kind of left.
I mean, I think that's this movie in general, where the execution is a little bit like falls short. But for me personally, I was like, oh, they only lived 17 seconds. Like, holy smokes! And I just thought they were cool. You know, for me, you know, jumping out of a helicopter, skydiving towards the ground and having a dragon chase you, to me, I was like, this is intense. Like, that would be the most wild adrenaline rush, close to dying as you can come. And, you know, a couple of them did die.
Yeah.
I wish I started a stop clock to see how long that they actually lived from the point that they actually jumped out and then like died. It would have been really interesting.
5 minutes. No, somewhere in there.
Yeah, probably. But I
don't know. It was a lot.
I thought they were really cool. So I mean, that is something worth mentioning. Van Zan, he comes to this compound with this like decked out military crew. And I don't mean decked out as in like, you know, top everything or whatever, but more than what these people had in the compound, right? Like, they didn't have a helicopter. They didn't have tanks. They seemed to be running real low on ammunition. And so it almost seemed like it was these saviors that were coming to the compound, right? Because they lost their crops. They didn't know what to do. And Matthew McConaughey shows up to save the day. So after that, him and Quinn start to butt heads because Van Zan wants to go after the big dragon. Not only that, but like wants to take some of his people from the compound to join him.
Is that it? 4 of you?
Eddie, what you doing? You got kids, man.
That's why I'm going greedy. That's why.
So this is what I thought was wild. Van Zan is doing his whole intro at the beginning there, and he's talking about how they flew a plane over from the States to the UK here, and he left with 200 soldiers, and I think, like, how many did he say that died? Like 100 or something?
I think so, yeah. Something crazy like that.
Which is just absolutely nuts. Like, was that dragons? Was that, like, just, you know, poor...
Infighting?
Yeah, like, what happened? But he lost over 100 men coming over in this plane, which is just absolutely nuts to me. Like, the body count that goes in this movie is just...
Oh, it's insane.
I mean, it must be insane. You're dealing with dragons. But anyway, so he comes over, and eventually what he reveals to Quinn is that, like, after they murder the first dragon, is that it's a female. And he asks him, has he ever seen, like, the big dragon? And so what he's alluding to is that it's a male dragon, and that they're a lot like fish, where, you know, the female will lay the eggs, and then the males will come over and they will fertilize the eggs. So that's essentially how they produce. And for whatever reason, it's only one male dragon that exists that's just, you know, going nuts, spreading his seed, fertilizing. Dan, now, this might be getting into kind of why this movie failed a little bit, but for me, it was like, this one dragon is fertilizing eggs, but there's no males born. I don't know. It didn't really make sense, but
I got major beef with this one dragon thing.
Okay.
And this is kind of my only problem with this whole movie revolves around this one dragon. I don't know if we want to get into it now or wrap up the plot first.
Yeah, okay. Let me wrap up the synopsis here. Sorry, it's taking me forever. So after that, they make this grand plan. They're gonna go and find this male dragon because they want to murder it so that they can stop the breeding of the dragons, and, you know, eventually they can just kill them all off. But what happens originally is that Van Zan leaves with a few of the people from the compound. When he goes to attack and he goes to London, where the original outbreak was, he gets decimated, right?
Yeah.
He comes back to the compound after, obviously, to kind of resupply, regather himself, and then hopefully ask for Quinn's help to go and kill the dragons.
Yeah.
After much humming and hawing, Quinn reluctantly agrees, goes, and they go as a 3-man squad to kill this male dragon. And they go into the heart of London, which Quinn is leading the way because obviously he comes from there. And he knows all the back entrances or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
They go. There's a lot of epic scenes. We see this like crazy scene of Matthew McConaughey jump off a tower with his axe, which is like, I don't know how to feel about that, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
So basically, they eventually get it together and they defeat the dragon and they kill the male dragon, which should be said that there are still thousands of female dragons still
possibly
in existence. Millions. Yeah, possibly millions. But hey, they killed the one male dragon.
Yeah.
And then, that's kind of the movie in a nutshell.
How did you feel about the movie overall, watching it so many years later?
So this movie for me, if you were to picture a scale with a needle going between good and bad, it just constantly kept flip-flopping between both of those.
Yeah, so, I can see that.
When I originally watched this movie back when I was 13 years old, loved it. It's the coolest movie ever, right?
Yes, yeah.
You got dragons. You got, like, post-apocalyptic. You got ripped dudes slaying dragons, right? Like everything a 13-year-old boy is gonna love. But then I watched this movie again maybe about, I want to say maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and I thought, this is a giant turd. However, watching it again in preparation for this podcast, I thought, I love this movie.
You were back.
Yeah, I was back. I just went back to 13-year-old Aaron and was like, hell yeah, dragons, slaying, ripped dudes, hell yeah. And it is such a cool premise.
Yeah.
I think that's what really does it for me. What were your kind of thoughts in this?
I was kind of in the opposite camp. Like, I remember watching it in 2002 and, like yourself, just loving it, thinking it was the coolest thing ever, quickly labeling it one of my favorite movies. And I know I watched it a bunch kind of growing up, but watching it for this podcast the other night, something just wasn't clicking for me. Obviously, we'll get into the things we want to defend about it, but I thought I was going to have the same kind of experience I had with The Phantom watching this, where I was, I held it in high regard and it was kind of revisiting an old friend, but not so much. I was kind of surprised. I really got caught up on a lot of the logistical plot things and the universe, how it was built. And at the end of the day, I thought it was really bleak. It was ugly. Everything was blue and grainy. It was depressing.
Yeah.
I thought the ending was just awful. And I don't know. Yeah. It really surprised me. This one was a little bit tricky for me in that regard. I really expected to love it, Aaron. I really did.
Like I said, I don't know what it is about this movie. It's a little bit of a weird one where it constantly just fluctuates between good and bad. You know what I mean? Like, you're watching this movie and you're like, holy crap, this is awesome. And then you're like, what the heck am I watching? That in a nutshell was my entire experience watching this movie. But while I was watching this movie, one of the things that I wanted to, kind of keep in my mind, because first of all, whenever I discovered that this movie was like poorly rated, my first reaction was like, oh, I can't believe this movie. Like, I remember loving it as a kid, right?
Yeah.
The premise of this movie is so cool. I think we can all agree, and I don't know what it is, us as millennials and the millennials that are listening, is don't you just love a good post-apocalyptic movie?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just me. And considering the amount of things that we've been through as a generation as well, I think that it's just up our alley to just love a post-apocalyptic movie. So This one for me is kind of like, it hits close to home. And I think that might be part of the problem with me in this movie, is that I just might be biased towards it because like I just have such fond memories from being a kid, you know?
Yeah, totally. I get that.
We found out where they started. We're going to London.
This summer,
Vertical one up.
the plan is set.
1,600 yards, closing fast.
The arsenal has been assembled.
Get ready to rock and roll.
I have a major bone to pick with this movie.
Okay.
I want to hash this out a little
Lay it
bit.
on.
I really want to drill down on this whole premise of the Alpha Dragon because I have thoughts. So here's what I have written in my notes. I'm going to read it verbatim. This is, by the way, if you didn't know, this is an unscripted podcast. It always has been. And so, but I got these notes and I have this written down and I just want to read this out loud to you. So you mean to tell me that in the battle for the planet Earth, nobody else noticed this dragon 10 times larger than the other dragons flying around London?
Do you want to hear my rebuttal to that?
I do, but I just want to flesh it out just a little bit. Because here's the thing. Denton Van Zandt shows up and he presents Quinn with this theory about the Alpha Dragon being solely responsible for all the millions of dragons that came out and basically slaughtered everyone.
Yeah.
And this genuinely seems like new information for Quinn. The other thing I want to get into later is that Quinn doesn't at any point in time acknowledge to Denton or anyone else for that matter that he might have actually inadvertently caused the downfall of humanity.
Yeah, okay.
He never mentions it, probably because everyone would kill him, but it adds a layer to his character. I want to talk about that later. But you have humans nuking these things, like all balls to the wall.
Whoa, let's dial it back. Nuking was implied, but it was never specified.
They go full Skynet, these dragons, Aaron. It's insane. And the thing that I can't get past is how Matthew McConaughey and his gang somehow 20 years after this outbreak started cracked the code that this was how the dragon life cycle worked. With all the modern technology that was available in the early 2000s, it's really difficult for me to come to grips with the fact that the dragon life cycle was so simple, especially because it would have been extremely obvious that that's where the outbreak started, was up out of the streets of London. So you got to counterpoint this because I couldn't get over this the whole movie. I was like, this is tough, man.
No.
This dragon was eating the other dragons like popcorn. It's huge.
Unfortunately, I wish I could clearly defend this movie, but like really, I mean, and I guess that's probably why it's rated so like as what it's rated. But I don't know. It's still plausible, you know. We got these dragons. They come out of the ground. First of all, just think about our modern day society, right? Imagine that you're just, you know, at work one day, just, you know, doing your thing, and then all of a sudden your phone starts going off and you're like, oh shit, what is this alert going off? And it's talking about dragons. That dragons have came out of the earth and are now wreaking havoc on Earth. And you're just like, I don't know what to do about this, right?
Yeah.
Even then, we couldn't believe they were real. Ancient man had made them into myths. But nature had made something far more terrible. Too late, our scientists discovered their true identity. A species which had burned the dinosaurs to dust, whose ash had brought on ice ages, who in eons past had scorched the world clean of life, then starved, then slept, waiting for the earth to replenish itself, waiting to start their cycle anew.
Let me dial it back a little bit. I realized something with this movie, Dan, and I don't know if you do this, but I will watch a movie and there will be glaring things that kind of stick out that like don't make sense, plot holes, whatever you want to call them, right? But my mind will just naturally fill in the gaps. So I'll be like, oh, this doesn't make sense. And then my mind will just make up something that just makes it all connect. To be honest, it was a little bit of an epiphany for me, but I've never realized that my mind works this way, where I'll just fill in the blanks if there are none. And so
that's a gift.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a blessing and a curse, right? So you watch a bad movie, and then my mind just like makes up things on the side to make it all connect and make sense. I don't know if anyone else does this, but if you do, like, let us know, because I want to know I'm not the only one. So for me, there was just a lot of like natural connecting the dots, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, for like being in London here, is maybe they didn't know. Maybe like thousands of dragons came out of there and just wreaked absolute havoc on the earth that like, and not only that, but like, could you imagine if a dragon came out and what would your reaction be? You'd be dumbfounded. You wouldn't know what to do, right? And I kind of think that's like, one of the coolest thing about this movie is that it takes place in like modern era, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you get a dragon movie, the dragon movie is either going to be fantasy or old-timey, like medieval times. And so that's one thing that like I also want to defend about this movie is that we get a dragon movie in like more modern era, which, you know, like that's stuff of books and fantasy, right? Like you don't see that in real life. So these people have no idea what they're dealing with.
Totally.
They don't know what a dragon is. They don't know what its reproductive, like what it like habits are. They don't know any of that. So it's this slow burn and this slow evolution of them discovering how to fight these dragons. And I would argue that Zandam was like the first one to kind of connect all the dots and lead a charge against the dragons. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But do you think, like, let's say if a female dragon lays a bunch of eggs in, say, rural Alberta, is the daddy dragon going to leave the UK and come and fertilize those eggs, or are the only eggs being laid in London?
No. I see what you're saying, and
Okay.
it is definitely a little bit of a plot hole. But like I said, my brain just made up things to make this movie make sense. So that's kind of how I see it.
Totally. Well, you know what I want to say is this is an extremely easy movie to defend. There is tons to like about this movie. So before we get into specific defense things, I want to throw one more curveball at you that I kept thinking about while watching this movie. I kind of want to script doctor this thing just a little bit because I had an idea for what this movie could have been, and I wanted to get your take on it. So at the beginning of the movie, Quinn gets hit in the eyes with the, I want to say like the accelerant for the dragon's breath, whatever you call that. And his eyes go bright red, like they're flush red. It's like a chemical burn. But when we fast forward to an adult, no harm, no foul. His vision seems perfect. So it didn't really seem like there was a reason for it. But I thought, man, wouldn't it be cool if fast forward 20 years and Quinn is like this blind prophet guy, and instead of it just being like this, kind of like colony of people, what if he was running a dragon cult where they actually like grew to worship the dragons, and he was like their prophet because he started it, right? Like he saw the first dragon rise up, so he was like a cult leader. And then when Denton Van Zandt comes up, they're butting heads because he wants to destroy the dragons and end all this, but Quinn pushes back because he's the cult leader and thinks that they're the cleanser of mankind or something. I couldn't get past this idea to the point where I kept wondering if at one point in time it was considered as a story beat, because Quinn's compound feels very culty to me. There's a lot of kids and not very many women. In fact, besides Isabella Scarupo's character, there's no other female presence in this movie. They're in the background, but there's no supporting female actors. Like, in the same way that the Wicker Man Island felt to me is kind of how Quinn's compound felt to me, where it was like, what's going on here? I love Quinn as a character, but I'm telling you, he is a glass of wine away from being a cult leader.
That is a good point. I honestly never thought of that, and now that you bring it up, you are definitely right about that. There is a very big lack of women in this compound. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Yeah.
They seem to be relegated in a weird way that I don't
No,
like.
no,
Something's fishy
you
here.
are right, but
What do you think of the dragon cult idea?
I do. Okay. Let me, you bring up a good point. In this day and age, because 2024, we're in the day and age of remakes and whatever you want to call them. And one of the things that I want to defend in this movie is just the entire premise of this movie, which I thought it was really, really cool. We have dragons coming out of the earth, wreaking havoc on the earth. It doesn't get much cooler than that. And I would absolutely love to see either a remake or a sequel or a prequel or anything kind of expanding on this universe, right? And I think that there is solid bones to this skeleton here, right?
Yeah.
It's got that depth, but it just needs to be fleshed out a little bit. And Hollywood bigwigs, if you're listening, we, us millennial dudes, we want a remake of Reign of Fire.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Well, there's one more thing I want to mention before I get into specific things I want to defend, because I just feel like there's so much to say.
Yep.
I have a surprising amount of stuff to say about this Reign of Fire movie here, and I'm realizing I'm looking at my notes, and I have more than I thought I did here.
Yeah. Okay.
So I found out that this script for this movie has been floating around since 1996.
Yeah.
And at one point in time, it had Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone attached to be the two characters, which would have been a very, very different movie.
Yeah.
Especially if it came out in the late 90s. But when I was watching this, something kept itching in the back of my brain. Something about this movie kept reminding me of something. And I was racking my brain all week trying to remember what the heck it was this reminded me of. And it hit me today, and I couldn't believe what I came up with here. So, in 1996, there was this movie that came out, a movie that I actually really, really like. It was called The Ghost and the Darkness, and it's the true story, actually, about the man-eating lions of Tsavo. Val Kilmer plays this character, Colonel John Patterson, who's tasked with getting this bridge built across the River Tsavo in Africa. But the problem is that work is slowed down because there's these purported man-eating lions. So Val Kilmer's, stop me if this sounds familiar, Val Kilmer is trying to keep these people alive and get this bridge built, and he's entirely unsuccessful in hunting these two man-eating lions because they keep evading the traps. So what happens is they bring in Michael Douglas, whose character is this American hunter who's he's this famous, brash American hunter named Charles Remington, who literally, and I kid you not, if you watch this movie, has the exact same voice inflection to his character that Denton Van Zandt uses in Reign of Fire. And that's when it clicked for me.
Does he chew on a cigar?
I don't think he actually chews on a cigar, no. But he's the brash hunter who knows how to take down the beast and start setting traps using human bait, just like the skydivers. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh my God, this movie was written at the same time as Ghost in the Darkness, and these two movies share so much of the same DNA.
Yeah.
Just replace dragons with lions, and it was just that's what it reminds me of.
The Ghost and the Darkness. I think I vaguely know of this movie, and I'm pretty sure I have seen it, but it's just been years.
I have no way of proving this, but I am pretty convinced that these two movies shared some DNA in the writer's room.
That's interesting.
So it's an awesome film, fantastic score, great acting. But I'm going to drop in a clip right here of a comparison of Michael Douglas's voice talking and Denton Van Zandt talking. You tell me if this sounds like the exact same character, I swear.
Lost 122 men and most of my fuel. We need shelter. A place to refit artillery. We'll be out of your hair by 1800 hours tomorrow.
That's a good story. Especially the bit about the plane, but there hasn't been anything in the air for 20 years. That's their territory.
That's my territory. That's your territory. They're just renting it.
Turn around, Van Zandt.
All right, you listen while I talk, because you got a question that needs answering. Will I pull this trigger?
You don't know all that has happened here.
He will pull the trigger, Abdullah.
The devil has come to Tsavo.
Oh, you're right. The devil has come to Tsavo. Look at me. I am the devil.
let's get into why we think that this movie bombed as hard as it did. Do you want to start us off? Like, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are marketing.
Okay.
For sure. Marketing. Yeah. This was billed as a balls-to-the-wall action movie, and I don't think it's that. It's more of a drama, I would say.
Yeah.
Also, it came out against Men in Black 2, and anytime you're coming out against a Will Smith movie in the early 2000s, good luck with that, right? So
also, Return of the King, like Lord of the Rings, came out in 2002, so that's a pretty big fantasy movie to compete with.
Yes. Yeah, it was a big year for dragons. I remember I remember there being like a bunch of different helicopters on the poster.
Yeah.
Some deceptive marketing, and I just don't think that I think the word of mouth just crushed this film. I think people came out of it and were just like, eh.
Whenever they showed the trailers did not make sense at all, right?
Right.
Like you said, it looked like this crazy action movie. But not only that, but I think even in the trailers that they stated that this takes place in 2084. So it made it seem like it was this crazy futuristic dragon movie, but when the movie actually came out, it was like, I think 2008 is supposed to be the time around when this dragon comes out of the ground. And then when they're all adults, it's 2020. So, right off the bat, you're getting a trailer here that is very misleading. And, and the movie is like completely different from what the trailer was advertising. So, as an example, for me, I don't know if, Dan, have you seen Civil War yet?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Civil War, when I first originally heard about that movie, I was like, us as Canadians, we hear about the January 6th insurrection and all that stuff, and you're like, okay, cool, this is about America going freaking nuts, right? And you're excited for it.
Yeah.
And then you start watching it, and you slowly realize that this is actually a movie about journalism and just the toll that it can take on a person. And suddenly it's a completely different movie. Now, Civil War was not a bad movie by any means, but it was incredibly misleading from what the trailers were to what the movie actually was. And now...
Perfect example, yeah.
Yeah, and so, and I think that this movie kind of falls prey to that as well, as this movie was advertised as being some big bombastic action movie, and then it actually was a post-apocalyptic drama.
Yeah, totally. People thought they were getting John Connor future Skynet battle against dragons, and they got The Last of Us,
Yeah, totally.
And they've got one chance to take back their world. Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale. Reign of Fire.
In the defense of this movie, for myself, it's a little bit easier to defend because, thinking back to 13-year-old Aaron, he didn't watch trailers. He didn't get excited like that, right? He just went into Blockbuster, cruised the rental aisle, saw this movie, saw dragons, saw fire, thought, hell yeah, I want to watch this.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, and so I never got led astray in this movie. It was just straight action for me.
Totally. Well, I want to get into some of the stuff I want to defend about this film because, like I said, it's such an easy film to defend. And even though I struggled with it a bunch, obviously it's in the name, it's in the podcast name. Let's drill down on some of the stuff we want to defend.
Okay.
I think a great place to start, and I know I've been ragging on him, but Quinn's character and Christian Bale's portrayal, I think is so good. He's honestly like this role model of this community. Like he leads a community. He keeps the people in check and keeps them safe.
Yeah.
But he also has this softer side where he entertains and nurtures the kids. Like he's putting on Star Wars plays and giving them culture. Yeah, it's such an awesome scene. And it just shows the complexity of his character where he's giving these kids a childhood that he didn't get. Because when we meet him as a kid, and the kid actor who plays him too is fantastic. The kid actor who plays him, when he's a child, he's very brash. He's got a foul mouth. He's very, you get the sense that he didn't really get a chance to grow up. Like he kind of got forced into this blue collar, he's just like this punk kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So see him as an adult where he's, putting on Star Wars plays for the kids, even though this horrific apocalypse has happened and he hasn't told anybody, including Van Zandt, like I said, about the part he played in the genesis of this apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like, of course, the Diggers were going to, they were going to release the dragons eventually. That seemed pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, he got, like, spat on by this nemesis. And he has been carrying around that trauma and that guilt for 20 years and is still pushing forward and growing crops. And I was blown away by the characterization of that and the fact that he took a real headbutt from Matthew McConaughey and still kept fighting in that scene. I was like, this is a great character, man. This is like a really, really great character.
Yeah.
Christian Bale just gives it 110% for the whole movie. So yeah, Quinn's A+ character building.
And see, this is where I come back to this movie constantly, like, kind of went back and forth between good and bad for me. Because, like, although I did love, and I really thought that Christian Bale's character was, like, really well thought out, apart from not explaining about how he was involved with, like, the first dragon or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, as a leader of a compound or whatever, he did a really good job of that. But the thing that I found the most odd was probably Matthew McConaughey's character, Zan Van, because he, when he first shows up on screen, you're like, holy crap, this is the coolest dude ever. But then he starts talking and then he kind of gets like a little bit weird.
Yeah.
Not only that, but he like kind of contradicts himself a little bit as well. And so for me, as weird as this sounds, is I think Matthew McConaughey was like maybe on the lower end.
Yeah,
like,
totally. I get that.
I want to say that I think that he did too much for this role. Like he overdid it, right?
One dragon down, 3 men dead. Oh, yeah. At that rate, we might just be getting somewhere in about 320 years. Is that what you want? You want a little accommodation?
Alexander Siddig, he talks about one of the first things that he remembers about this movie is that I guess the studio came up to him and told him that he's only, during the filming of this movie, if he was to see Matthew McConaughey anywhere, whether it be outside, whether it be on set, like anywhere, he is to refer to him as Van Zandt. So I don't know. Yeah. This is like early Matthew McConaughey, like just starting to break out in his career. And for me, I think he just went a little overboard with it.
There's nothing magical about them. They're made up of a collection of organs. They have a mind, a heart, and a liver. You take out one of these, you bring down the beast.
So what do you say we help each other? Now, I'm going to help you by killing the lions and then leaving. And you're going to help me by doing what I say so I can't leave. You see a problem with that?
He reminded me a lot of Stephen Lang's character, that colonel in Avatar.
Yeah.
Just the bad guy, chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
This low gravity will make you soft. You get soft. Pandora will you out dead with zero warning.
It was a bit much for me.
And he was kind of a dick, too.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a hard time believing that 200 people would actually follow this very clear, like, sociopath, who apparently can't feel things.
Yeah.
He has no empathy, apparently, except for when his men die.
Yeah, except for when his men die. That's the, I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. That's my issue with his character, is it contradicted itself so much, because it's like, they say things like, oh, he's like, he doesn't care, he's like this big bad guy, but then he's yelling at people because he lost 3 men. But, he just also lost like 100 and something men crossing the ocean. So I just don't know where to put him in this. So, and
he's just failing upwards.
Yeah, but at the same time, he was like really campy, which kind of almost made him a little bit fun, right? And the amount of just growls that he does is just insane.
Yeah.
Which also makes for a fun character, right? So I just come back to that, scale where it's just constantly going back and forth between good and bad.
If I was going to script doctor his character a little bit, I would give him more personal stakes. I would engage a little more like Moby Dick-esque vibe to it, where this is his white whale.
Okay.
Maybe he had a shot at it 10 years ago and failed, and now he's trying to redeem himself. Something just a little more personal.
Or like, maybe he had like a little daughter or something like that, and she got murdered by dragons, and now he's trying to create a better world. But they give him zero backstory other than he's just some like crazy dragon slayer, right?
And they had the time to do it,
Yeah.
They really did.
Coffeeville. It's etched in American history because the outlaw Dalton boys were killed there. Ordinary townsfolk rose up and took them down.
Maybe you're the Dalton boys.
We're the townsfolk.
The next thing I want to defend, which is obviously so easy to defend, is the dragons. How do these look so good? Genuinely, how? Like, all the animation was keyframed by hand. They did 3D scanning of these models. The way the light comes through their wings, the way they interact with the backgrounds. These are some of the best looking dragons ever committed to film. And not only that, but they set the standard for how dragons look on film, and in some cases function on film. Literally up until like this year. Like this is the gold standard of like, no, this is dragons. Now we're doing like, I couldn't believe how good these still looked. And I just think the visual effects, like there's some bad visual effects. There's some bad green screen, there's some, not without fault. But these dragons, that one scene where you have the big boy dragon perched on top of the castle and he's just about to hammer down fire straight down into the castle. It was stunning. Like that could have came out this year. Like truly, dragon effects have not gotten better than this movie. And I just I could rant and rave about how good they looked all day. I just couldn't believe it.
I think they knew more than I did about how well it was going to come out and that it had to be realistic. And that's the one you're worried about. Is like, it's a bunch of dots. How is it going to look liquid and fleshy? And then, hardest of all, how's it going to have a personality? It's a dot. They did it.
I thought the exact same thing. In researching this movie, it was really cool finding out all the behind-the-scenes stuff and all the work that went into creating the dragons. And I think that's one of the things that I also would like to defend of this movie is just the design of the dragons. Because they were really cool. And, in 2002, whenever... because I think 2002 is probably around the start of like CGI and all that stuff. Or I don't want to say the start of it, but like when they started to figure it out, right?
Yeah, like we're not too far removed from Godzilla at this point.
No. And I'm also thinking of, because I think Attack of the Clones is 2002 as well, if I remember correctly. This is kind of the start of like movies incorporating CGI more. And it just absolutely so cool to find out that this movie has like inspired like all these dragon designs, right? And if that is the only thing that came out of this movie, which I think is also huge, because after this, like a lot of movies, with dragons and stuff came out after this, right?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic.
Where's the fire come from? And I was looking a lot at snakes, cobras. I was watching National Geographic and it showed this cobra spitting, and I thought, well, that's it. That's how we'll do it. It'll be glands that squirt out opposite chemicals, and when the two touch, there's flame.
If you were to say compare how the dragons look in this to say a modern day Game of Thrones episode, House of the Dragon, they don't look dissimilar. Like this is, like this movie was 22 years ago. Yeah. And it still is incredible.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that alone is like a huge defending point for this movie.
Yeah,
a lot of cool stuff went into creating these dragons.
Yeah.
Not only that, but like just even where they took inspiration from, right? I think the way that they came up with like the fire breathing technique was based off of like was it a beetle? I'm not too sure. It was some sort of insect that like, spits this like, is it a liquid or a fire? Do you know what I'm talking about, Dan?
Oh, yeah. It secretes the venom and it kind of mixes two things. It's like an epoxy or something.
It's so cool. And not only that, but because the movies after this also started incorporating that in their dragon design. So
yeah,
very,
I'm pretty
very
sure
cool.
that's how they do it in Harry Potter as well.
Yeah.
In the fourth one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool, and it set the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
And the way the dragons move when they're landed as well. Everyone does that, you know, like the way the back shoulders go up like a cat or something.
Yeah.
Like this is literally the gold standard of dragon, and it was over 20 years ago.
Yeah,
it's awesome. It's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I want to defend is the production design.
Okay,
Wolf Kroger did the production design. Wolf Kroger did Enemy at the Gates, 13th Warrior, Last of the Mohicans, Lady Hawk, hello, First Blood, and Popeye. This movie looks so lived in, and especially for the budget. This is the kind of post-apocalyptic movie where everything just looks junky and dirty and run down and gritty. You know, it's not a place you want to live per se, but like the destruction of London, everything felt bombed out. It felt like a war movie. The production design is top notch in this film. Right down to the rifle and the cartridge that Quinn uses is appropriate. One of the most like powerful cartridges on the planet that you wouldn't want to fire that damn thing. But of course, you know, when you're going up against dragons, that's probably the best you're gonna do. And it's just these little details all over the place. The water spraying on the tires of the cars while they drive, things like that. Just the thought and the consideration to how this world would work. Like, how could these people survive? The flame retardant suits, everything, man. The production design. It's an ugly film, but it looks so appropriate for what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so much thought went into this film, and I love it. I absolutely love the production design.
Yeah.
And so huge props there. What did you think?
For me, I think that the kind of like dingy, dark movie kind of makes sense for this apocalyptic dragon world. So I really enjoyed everything. It was for me top notch. Like as far as a believable world goes, I would say this was like extremely believable.
Yeah, it's too bad though that the future's so blue and void of color. I'm not looking forward to that in our future, and when everything turns blue and void of color.
I mean, technically, we would be past that date now, right? Because we're 2024.
I think so. 2024. We haven't had dragons. We haven't had robots. We're not living in the post-apocalypse yet that we're aware of. It's too bad. So, Aaron, as we drag this daddy dragon back down into the London metro,
yes,
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Was Gerard Butler's voice ADR'd in this movie?
Oh, no. I don't know. Give me a reasoning behind this.
There are two different instances where I felt like his voice didn't match up with his audio. And I suspected that maybe his accent was too thick on the day of filming.
Yeah.
So they stuck him in the studio and made him clean it up. But I have no proof of this, but I wanted to know if you noticed it, because it was pretty funny to me.
You know what, Dan? I didn't notice, and I feel bad for that. Sorry. I don't feel bad that I didn't notice, but I feel a little bit weird because I think that there was a lot of glaring things in this movie that, like, you know, would make it a bad movie, but for some reason my brain just tuned them all out.
Well, speaking of Gerard Butler's character, Creedy, I also noticed that he had, like, the worst muzzle discipline in the history of characters.
Yeah.
He was flagging everybody, just like hand talking with his rifle.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, this guy survived this long.
There was a little like weapons, like continuity errors in this movie, especially when I was watching them with their crossbows, and he's like pulls a crossbow with one hand, and I'm like, no, that's not possible.
No.
What is it, like 130,
No, that's not happening.
130 pounds or something like that? Like, and you're gonna pull that with one hand? Like, you're ripped, but you're not that ripped. But
yeah, there's an attention to detail, but they get really wishy-washy when it comes to overall like handling and function.
And
it's pretty funny.
And I think that is this movie in a nutshell. That it is like a lot of like good things here, but just handled poorly.
Yeah, like Another weapons thing that kind of jumped out at me is those C4 tipped arrows. Those don't explode on impact. C4 needs an ignition.
Yeah.
It needs a sword, like it needs to. So those C4 arrows are only effective if they're literally shot at the moment the dragon is expelling fire.
Yeah.
Which is insane to me that's something that's in his arsenal, where it's like, you have to wait until you're standing directly in front of this thing. You get one shot at it or else you die. And that was the story of all of Van Zandt's ideas. It was, you either do this or you die immediately. And it was like, that was his whole plan.
Yeah.
Every one of his plans was either it works or you die immediately. And it was like, is this why 100 guys died? I'm like, is there any plans you have that don't involve immediate death?
Yeah. when he like just recruits people from the compound there, and he like, and he's like, now dig your own graves. I'd be like, I don't know. I think I need to go. Actually, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't know. And see, and now I come back to like some scenes in this movie. You're like, he's awesome, and then some of these scenes, you're like, what is going on? And that's what I mean. Is this movie is so weird, where it just constantly fluctuates between good and bad.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster.
Definitely.
They also mentioned this idea of magic hour, and how at magic hour the dragon's vision is messed up. And magic hour is essentially sunset, right? Like when the sun's like just cresting the horizon sort of thing.
And if you're a basic girl, that's called golden hour.
This is where you get your nice photos at Kitsilano in English Bay.
Yeah, exactly.
The only problem with that is that they're literally living in like a nuclear winter where the sky is full of ash.
Literally
and smoke
everything
and
is great. Actually, Dan, now that you said that, you bring up a good point. Because one of the things that I kind of had the hardest time just kind of figuring out with this movie is just, what is the dragon's like end goal, right? They come out of the ground, they scorch the earth. Anytime that there's humans, they burn them. But then they also they refer to the dragons multiple times, saying they're starving. Well, these dragons are just like, what are they doing? Laying eggs and just murdering humans?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of one of the things where I was just like, they didn't flesh out what the dragons actually wanted, right?
Yeah, they imply that they wiped out the dinosaurs. Like, they're extremely destructive. I think their life cycle is wake up, eat and destroy everything in sight, and then go back to bed, and then
wait
I guess
thousands of years for like the Earth to repopulate itself.
Maybe even millions at the rate. Yeah, it is a real. It's a real conundrum to write yourself out of. That's for sure. But yeah, no, that's all it is. I don't think it gets any more complicated than that.
Yeah.
So right before we wrap up, Aaron, one more thing. The sound design of the dragons flying. It was really cool and haunting and definitely unique. And that struck out. I wrote that down on my notes here. I thought the sound design of the dragons was top notch for sure.
The soundtrack to this movie was quite good, actually. A little Jimi Hendrix, a little fire. You know what I'm saying?
I could have used a little more rock and roll, honestly. I could have used a little bit more. Yes. So, Aaron, did you have a WTF moment in this film?
Actually, I did. I want to say that the WTF moment for me was that whole initial opening scene. I was like, what the fuck is happening here? He first of all, I kind of liked it because as a tradesperson, this guy comes in and he's just like talking to all these drillers and whatnot. And he's got that lingo down, you know, like he's bantering with them. But then it starts getting weird when he hits the elevator, right? And the guy's like, oh, do you want to smoke? And he's like, nah, I'm cutting back. And you're like, oh, like, what a funny joke.
All right, Quinn. Oi, come on then. You not having one yourself then?
No, I'm trying to cut back.
Then he goes down all the way to the elevator and he runs into his mom. His mom sniffs him and is like, have you been smoking? And then he says, no, not unless I've been drinking. And then she goes like, oh, what's wrong? And then I don't know. They never specify, but it seems like he got expelled from school. Maybe for smoking, maybe for drinking. But in my understanding, it's heavily implied that this kid who is, I don't know, how old would you say? Maybe like 12 or 13?
Yeah.
Is drinking and smoking.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think it's like a big deal for his mom, which also brings me to another story where it's just like, I think kids in the UK are just a different breed where, I don't know, maybe they get into that stuff a lot younger.
Yeah, or at least they did at one point, yeah.
One time I did go to visit a friend in the UK.
Yeah.
He was teaching in there at a time, and he was just taking me around, and he showed me, and we went through a walk through a park. And I remember getting to the park. This was, I believe, in 2016, and I just seen a bunch of kids, and like they had to be, I don't know, maybe 11 or 14 years old, like just very young kids. And they're at the park just drinking vodka at the table. And then we keep walking, and then like eventually he sees some students that he was teaching, and they like yelled at him and mooned him. And so I just think kids from the UK are on like another level that we don't understand.
Yeah, I think so.
Sorry, the very beginning scene was very WTF. And then not only that, but the fact that the grown-ass adult was like, hey, yeah, just crawl into this mine hole shaft thing that we just dug and get in there. Not only that, but like gear. No safety. Yeah, nothing. Yeah. Like just this kid just walks up, goes down an elevator and just goes down into this shaft. And so for me, that was very like, what the heck is going on?
And his reaction implies that this is not the first time he's been forced to do something like this.
Yes, definitely.
Which is even more frightening.
Yeah. Like, where are the child labor laws?
Yeah, there's something really fishy going on there for sure.
Maybe this world deserved to be destroyed by dragons.
I know. But you know, it was clever, though, that he's asked, like, have you been smoking?
Yeah.
And he's the dude that wakes up the dragon. I thought that was really funny and clever. Like, he's not smoking, but soon the whole world will be.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Well, I think my WTF moment is just Denton Van Zandt's axe jump.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know exactly what his plan was, but it really felt like suicide to me.
Yeah.
It did not feel like the culmination of a sane thought. Like, I think he went up there literally to kill himself.
And that is another issue with this movie. And this is probably my biggest bone to pick with this movie is the ending. The ending just seems so flat.
I hate it. I hate the ending of this film.
I don't mind Christian Bale in the ending of this movie and whatever he went through, but just Matthew McConaughey's character, I don't know. There's such a build-up. There's so much just this like ambience around him, you know, of this big, bad dragon killer. And then he just jumps into the mouth of the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, that is probably one of the biggest faults of this entire movie.
Aim for the bushes?
Yeah, pretty much. It had very much that vibe. But like...
Just a nonsense way to die.
Yeah, totally.
There's no version of that where he succeeded.
Maybe his goal was to get eaten in a hole so that he'd be inside the dragon, like fighting his way out.
Yeah, cut himself out like Drax or something.
Yeah.
Once he got in there, he realized that he was just, nope. He's like, oh no, it's not working.
Just
I'm getting melted by sulfuric acid.
Just melted him.
I didn't expect this.
All right.
So, Aaron, what would you say to recommend this film to somebody?
Well, there's a couple of things. I would say, like, number one, watch it because the dragon design is, like, pretty cool. And also, I think that whether we want to acknowledge it or not, but this is, in terms of, like, dragon cinema, this is at the forefront, right? This movie was a pioneer for, like, all dragon movies. Shows, movies, whatever you want to say. So that's the number one reason why I want to say it. And number two, I would say it's still worth a watch because it does have a lot of cool ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still worth a watch. Like I said, it's not very well fleshed out, but it is still a very cool premise. What would you say?
I 100% agree with you. I think you nailed it. This is the gold standard as far as dragon movies go, which is weird, but it is. And Yeah, it just set like I said before, it set the bar. Every time a dragon's on film after this, it's literally parroting the exact same design. We haven't seen anything new in dragon design since. So that's awesome. Yeah, the production design and the performances are just, they're a little uneven, the performances, but, they're fantastic. And there's just so many awesome ideas in this film. Just ideas, and so many of them are awesome. I loved the idea, for instance, of like them using hawks to detect when dragons are coming because they have such superior eyesight that they could see the dragons before humans did. And just little touches like that where you're like, man, that is a really cool idea. There's so many little throwaway ideas, and I just think all of that's worth seeing. And just the, macho early 2000s, man versus beast kind of vibe is really cool. It's a really cool film.
Very cool film.
Yeah.
Well, Dan.
Well, Aaron.
Do you have a rating for this movie?
Well, it's definitely above 50%. The fact that this is below 50% is insane to me. Absolutely insane. I don't get it. I shared my struggles with the overall plot and conventions of this film, but there is so much good stuff in this film, and just the visual effects alone, what they were able to accomplish. This is easily a 70% film to me, somewhere in there.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, critics like roasted this film, no pun intended, when it came out. And I get that. And obviously I shared my thoughts, but that being said, I don't see how this is 42. That's insane to me. 60s, 70s, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think
easy.
that like 65, maybe 69%.
I see what you did there.
Somewhere right around in there. I think that's like right about what I would rate it. Like I said, for me, this movie just constantly fluctuated between good and bad, but because this movie was such a pioneer for the dragon technology, and not only that, but just had such a cool concept.
Yeah.
Since this movie has been made, I don't think anything has been made like it. So I don't know. And that's kind of why I would give it a higher rating than like under 50%.
Yeah.
Just for the originality and then the dragons. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, it seems like we agree pretty well on all that stuff. So that's wicked. Great.
Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale. Reign of Fire.
Well, that was 2002's Reign of Fire. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you haven't seen this movie, obviously a recommendation from both of us. It's a huge part of cinema history and sci-fi fantasy. And yeah, it's very unique and very cool in its premise. And I wish it did better because I feel like a sequel could have gone places and a bit more of a budget and a bit more of a defined, this could have gone places and maybe it still will. Who knows?
It could, it's still young.
It could happen.
We
could find out that Matthew McConaughey's character survived and did indeed chop his way out, but not until the dragon died.
Oh.
And then they could reunite.
Dan, let me pitch a fan theory to you, okay?
Do it. Let's hear it.
So Creedy actually didn't die, and he moved away, and now is starting a clan of How to Train Your Dragons.
There it is. Yes.
Yeah.
Toothless and the Night Furies.
Yeah, exactly. So now we get a spin-off of How to Train Your Dragon.
Quinn finds out about this and is absolutely appalled, and he declares war on the Isle of Berk. Boom.
I hope we see it.
I love it. Well, this has been In Defense of a Movie Podcast, and I hope you're enjoying the episodes. Be sure to check out our socials. They're all in the show notes. And if you like the show and you like what you're hearing, please feel free to drop us a rating and let your friends know that we exist. And I'm sure we'll have some spicy, tasty memes on our Instagram for you to check out after this episode. So yeah, this has been In Defense of a Movie Podcast, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.